capitalism is always producing surpluses and needs to find ways in which to absorb those surpluses. The way this works is this: capitalists start the day with a certain amount of money, end up the day with more money. Then they find themselves forced to take part of that new money and reinvest it in expansion. A good capitalist economy expands at 3% a year. And actually, since the beginnings of capitalism around 1750, the data show it has expanded by around 2.5% per year. That is 2.5% because occasionally, like now, there is no growth whatsoever. There was no growth in the 1970s. So that notion of a 3% growth forever is exactly what poses the deepest problem for what capitalism is about. We've got this system, if you like, which is expanding. In, say, 1820, it was expanding at 3%, but then it was a relatively small economy. By the time you get to 1950, we're talking about a $4 trillion global economy. By the time you get to 2000, we're talking about a $40 trillion global economy. We're now looking at an economy which is $56 trillion. And now 3% on $56 trillion is a big, big investment challenge. And the difficulty has been over the last 30 years to find decent places to put your capital surplus so that you can get a reasonable profit. And that is, if you like, at the heart of the problem, which leads into this development and property speculation and development speculation in stock markets and the like. So this is, if you like, the heart of what I think the nature of the problem is. How to absorb the capital surpluses, and in what ways to absorb those capital surpluses that are profitable to the capitalists. So this is, if you like, where I think we should start to reflect also on the other aspect of what happened over the last 30 years. Because over the last 30 years, what we've seen is a politics of wage repression. Up until the 1970s, labor was pretty powerful. It was fairly well paid if you were in a unionized job. It was fairly significant in terms of purchasing power. But in the 1970s, what we started to see was an attack upon organized labor, an attack upon their power. And the unemployment that occurred in the late 70s and early 80s further diminished the power of labor. So the labor problem was, if you like, solved by capital going abroad, offshoring as we call it, by direct repression through the politics of Reagan, Thatcher, and of course in places like Chile, Pinochet. So what we have here is, if you like, a repression of labor. Wages remains constant, and when wages are constant, it means the market is not flourishing. So the big problem for capital over the last 30 years is to where to put your money when the market is not expanding because wages are stagnant. The answer was, of course, the debt economy. Give people credit cards, get them indebted. And what we see is that in 1970s, the average household in constant dollars owed about $40,000. Now it owes about $130,000. So you tripled the debt burden. So the gap, if you like, between the demand, which is coming from a stagnant wage rate, is upped by the fact that people are going deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. And we reach the end of that in this particular crisis because this, what we're in right now, is a debt crisis as well as an urban crisis, as well as a financial crisis, which is now, if you like, becoming a crisis of the production center and a global crisis of the capitalist economy.